If you're unhappy, do something about it. That's it. It might be opening your business, it might not be, but if you're unhappy, until you do something, you're just going to keep being unhappy.
Well, hello. We are so excited today for this interview in this podcast with the attorney Joel Chorny from Tucson. How are you doing, Joel?
I'm good, Huberto. How are you?
Thank you for making this time to share your experience, and I'm so excited to hear a little bit about your journey as an attorney. And I understood that you graduated from George Washington Law. Is that right, in Tucson?
Not in Tucson, but
Where
in
is it?
Washington, D.C.
Oh, well, okay. It makes sense.
Yeah.
George Washington, yeah, okay. And right now you are in the area of criminal defense in Tucson, Arizona. Is that right?
That is correct, yes.
Perfect. It's a pleasure. I understand too as well that you speak Spanish.
I do, fluently.
Great. It's a good place, to speak Spanish in Tucson. Is that right?
It comes really in handy, for sure.
Well, to all our audience, I just want to tell you, I already talked to Joel a couple of weeks before, and he was sharing with me his experience in building his own law firm. And that's why he is here with us to share and give us some insights and advices, to empower all the attorneys around and show empathy, that it's possible. We can do really hard things, So I just want to start asking you, Joel, what do you think was the key point in your career as an attorney that make you take the decision to open your own firm?
Sure, absolutely, Huberto. Thanks for that question. So I was a public defender for almost 12 years. I worked for people who couldn't afford their own lawyer. And so I really believed that my whole career was going to be doing that. I thought I'd retire doing that kind of work. I was convinced that I had no desire to run a business. I didn't want to chase money. I didn't want to have to worry about anything other than practicing law. And for a long time, I was very comfortable with that. And then what happened was COVID happened. And part of what I loved so much about working in the office that I worked in was the camaraderie and the sense of team of seeing fellow attorneys such as myself every day and being able to talk to them about their cases and to compare notes and exchange tips and ideas. And then COVID happened and I wasn't allowed to go into the office anymore. And so I had to work on my own, and any interactions I had with colleagues were online and not nearly as satisfying. So what I loved about the job was no longer part of the job. Fast forward to when we were called back into the office, and that wasn't part of the job as much anymore. People were still kind of skittish about COVID and being distant, and myself included. And so the job was different, and that was one strike against the job. And then the thing that really kicked off the decision was in 1 week, I had 2 very negative client interactions where it was not, the clients were very unpleasant, but I was not happy with how I was to those clients. I'm not proud of the way I behaved towards those clients. And I called my supervisor about it, and she joined me in my office, and we talked about it. And she asked all of the right questions for my well-being. She made sure that I was okay. She made sure that I understood that the office stood by me and that we would be withdrawing from those clients' cases. And she said, like I said, all of the right things if the only concern was my well-being. But at no point did I feel any concern for what my client's experience had been in that. I was really expecting her to dress me down a little bit, to lecture me about how, there's no excuse for being unprofessional or whatever, however you want to characterize it. But there was none of that. And I don't fault her for it. What I realize is this job doesn't have the same priorities that I have for myself. And so I felt like I was no longer at a job that was aligned with who I wanted to be for myself.
Yeah.
And I did not know I was going to open up my own practice. That night, I called a friend, mentor, and colleague of mine to talk about the situation. And at the very beginning of the conversation, she says to me, Joel, you need to open up your own practice. And I was like, no, I don't want to be a businessman. I don't want to do that. And 90 minutes later, that was a 90-minute phone conversation, I resolved I was going to start my own practice. And that was the decision that I made right then and there. I actually had given myself a very conservative deadline. I said so this was a conversation I had in June of 2022, and I had given myself until December 31st of 2023. So I'd given myself almost a year and a half to have my office up and running. And I called my parents and I told them, this is my plan. And they both started laughing. He says, there's no way you're going to wait 18 months to start your own practice. And sure enough, they were right. They must know me, because by September 1st of that same year, I was up and running, and I'd been in practice for myself ever since.
That's nice. Well, that means you're telling me that you have a colleague, a mentor that guide you and give you ideas. How important was that for you?
Crucial. Actually, Gilberto, when you had me think about what kinds of tips and advice I would give, having a support network was going to be number one on that list. But having colleagues that you respect and trust, that you can talk to and show them the ugly part of your practice, right? One of the things that is so hard about what we lawyers do is that a lot of it is keeping up appearances. It is hard to show your vulnerability and to let people know when you're struggling. I'm certain it's one of the reasons why there's so much substance abuse in our profession, because when you have to keep pretending that everything is fine, everything's in order, when in fact it isn't. And it only gets less in order as time goes on. So having people that you can confide in and to share what your struggles are, what your experiences are, and to have them, sometimes all I need is for them to tell me, you're doing fine, Joel. Just don't doubt yourself, you're doing fine. And that's very valuable. But sometimes it's like, Joel, here's what you need to do. You messed up, here are some tips and things that you can do to fix it. And that's also invaluable. I could not imagine what this profession would be like if I had no one I could turn to. I'm very fortunate that I have a wife that I love and is very supportive of me, and I certainly rely on her. But the truth is, in my area of practice, criminal law, criminal defense, there are things I just don't want to put on her plate, just because there's a lot of ugliness in the world that I deal with. And frankly, I love her too much to do that to her. So to have someone who understands the nature of the work and the kinds of things that we see on a regular basis and struggle with, but have to pretend like we're fine, impervious to, is invaluable. There's just, I cannot quantify how important it is to have people like that in your corner.
I love that. I love that, because it's not possible that you can grow alone, you know?
No, it really isn't.
Yes. And this attorney, based on her experience, allows you to learn and open your vision in different ways, and empower you to think, hey, you can do it. You can have your own business, you know? I love that. And tell me what kind of things you need to shift mentally to accomplish that goal, because it was COVID. It was a hard time for everyone, you know? And like you are sharing, it was hard for you as well. And I love the way that you said, that's why I believe that you are successful, because when I meet with attorneys, I said the most important thing that you can do is give value to your clients. The money will come, but if they can see and feel and understand all the value that you are sharing with them, the money will come, you know? The branding is going to increase, you know, and your business is going to grow. And you mentioned that. I love that you mentioned that. Your concern was for your clients, you know? And I think that that's the right vision. When we teach people how to grow their business, that's the right path to follow. So tell me about your mindset. Okay, this attorney guide you, give you ideas, amplify your vision. What do you need to shift in your mind to realize that you can do it, to believe in yourself?
Well,
because I'm sorry to interrupt you, Joel, because I have attorneys coming asking me, do I need to do it? I'm so afraid. I don't know if I can do it. So what do you think works for you in your mind to accomplish that?
Well, I have to go back to my support system, my support network. I had enough people telling me that they believed in me and that I could be successful, that at some point I had to just accept what they were telling me and put a little bit of faith in their faith in me. I mean, truth be told, to this day, I'm still amazed that I've had this business running as long as I've had it running. And I do live in this constant low boil fear that at any given moment is the day I'm going to have to close it, which I hear is just the normal way of being in practice. It's just kind of the way lawyers are when they have their own practices. But what had to change in me was to stop valuing my opinion of myself over the opinion of those around me of myself, if that makes sense. We spend all of our lives being told, don't worry what other people think about you. It doesn't matter what other people think about you. And I think that's very valuable advice, except when it wasn't. I had to start thinking about what other people thought about me and listening to them. And they said, Joel, if you do this, you'll be successful. You're a good attorney. You're a good person. You can make this work. We believe in you. And I had to, and as my colleague and friend told me in the phone call, she said, Joel, you need to invest in yourself, to bet on yourself. And it took her 90 minutes to convince me that that's what I needed to do. But I think she was right. It's a matter of eventually accepting that you're never going to know 100% that it's going to work. In retrospect, I look at it going, it was going to work. It had to work. I knowing myself, I was going to make it work. Yeah. But also recognizing that if it doesn't work, you'll figure it out. Right? There are only two options. You deal with it or you don't. And not dealing with it is just not an option, because that's rolling over and dying, and I'm not prepared to do that. So, and it's been a journey over the last 2 years of being in practice where I've wrestled with this, the uncertainty and the concern that this might not work, and that fear of failure. It doesn't go away, but there comes a point where you realize being afraid of it isn't accomplishing anything. There's a little saying I like, which is that worry is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere. And so that's kind of the approach that I remind myself to take when it comes to that uncertainty and that anxiety. Is all this worrying that I'm doing about it is not actually making any difference for it. And if often you're worrying about something that never materializes, you're worrying about an unknown, unsatisfied condition that may never come. And so worrying about it is just causing you to suffer about it when you could have saved yourself the suffering. So I strive, I don't always succeed, but I strive to not worry so much about what's coming down the road, instead focusing on what I can actually manage right here and now.
That reminds me, like we always talk, is you fail and you learn, but you need to keep going, Okay, I failed. And how was that for you? If you can give an advice to the audience, about what are the hard things or tricky things that you did, that you failed, but you keep going, that is important to pay attention when you are set up your business, that is normal, that everyone can struggle when they open their own business. What was the hard thing that you went through that you can advise the audience, to pay attention and be aware that that's normal, that happens, and that they can go through those things?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing I deal with running my practice is not taking on clients that I either because I don't feel that there's much value I can bring to them, I just don't see what I can do for them, or I don't want to accept that the money they're going to pay me is worth putting up with them, if that makes sense. So what I struggle with is being in business, but not compromising my ideals, my values for the business. And that's hard. It's hard when you have to make payroll, you have to make your rent, and your revenue's been slow, and someone comes in and they look like they're willing to pay you a bunch of money, but they don't have it. There's not much you can do for them, right? And to remind yourself that this is a long game. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And to keep that in view, so that when I say to this person, I really don't see what value I can bring to your case, or frankly, I think that the money you'd pay me would be better spent on this other thing for your household's well-being. I've had that conversation many times, and I'm not bringing it up to humble brag, but to say that it's hard. And the nature of our job as attorneys, where these meetings are confidential and privileged, so it's not the kind of thing where anyone checks up on you. There's a lot of trust that's put on us as practitioners. When people come to us for a consultation and they tell us about their situations, and then we size them up and decide, are we going to take your money or not? That is a very powerful position to be in that I take very seriously. But at any given moment, you might make the wrong choice. Like I've taken clients on that I've learned to regret taking them on. And I was like, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. And in the moment when you have that realization, like, oh, I saw this problem coming from a mile away and I still signed this client on, it's a learning experience, right? It's easy to get bogged down, like, oh, how did I do this? And I've been there. I've done this to myself. Oh, you really screwed this up, Joel. You took on this client. You should have known better, right? But you learn. Or the opposite of that, which is someone comes to you, they have a bunch of money, they're willing to pay you, and you tell them, I don't think that at the end of our relationship you'd be very happy because there's not a whole lot I can do for you on your case. Better for you to keep your money and do this other thing. And then they're very grateful to you, but you always wonder, like, should I have taken that money? Should I have taken the case? And some people say yes, some people say no. But ultimately, the biggest advice, most important advice is do what feels right for you. At the end of the day, it's cliche, but you're the one who has to look yourself in the mirror before you go to bed at night. You're the one who looks at yourself in the mirror when you wake up in the morning. Make sure that the person looking back at you is someone that you can keep eye contact with. And it's not easy, but it's what's required. And what I say to the audience is, I hear you, I see you. It's hard. It is hard. But the fact that it's hard means you're doing it right. If it were easy, there's something you're not doing right.
I made me think that each of us are building our own story, and part of this story is how people tag us, that's branding,
Mm-hmm.
I was talking with an attorney a couple months ago, and he says, I was talking with a client, I said, we will help you with this process, and it's going to be, I think that he says, it's gonna be $2,500, and the person says, okay, so if it's $1,200 and $12,500, I will give you right now $7,000. And he looked at me, he says, wow. So I said $2,500, and he understand $12,500. And Gilberto, woo, that was a good day for me. And I was thinking, he said a lot about himself when he shared that with me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, like you said, it says, no, you misunderstood. It's $2,500.
Mm-hmm.
But he saw like a great opportunity that the customer got confused. And he says, okay, it's 12K. So I'm going to give you 7 right now, and I can give you the other rest and the other. So he said that, so thinking that he's a good salesperson. But in the end, we are building not just money, we're building our reputation,
Right.
And I know that's hard, especially when you start a business. You can think, but in the end, those things always follow you, like you said. I love that you shared that, because sometimes when we open our business, everything is about thinking in money, and sometimes we forget about that. Everything is about trust. Everything is about the people can say, hey, Joel is over there, and what a nice guy. He always was honest, and he always was doing those things. And even that you don't have millions of dollars, but that makes sense. So
Definitely makes sense.
got my attention that you're sharing this. I think that's on my age. I'm going to be 56 next in 2 weeks, and I was thinking those are the most important things, because people will remember us. We want that people, when we do marketing, Joel, we want that people remember us. in a good way. So they always come back and give us referrals. That's the real marketing. That's the real branding. And like you said, I love that the way that you concern about your clients and how important it is that to be honest and build trust with the audience and with the community, because that's the way that I see really successful people. Because success, as you know, is not just about money. Prosperity is about how we become, the people that we become. So, Joel, how do you balance, your life, your professional life, and your personal life? Because there's a lot of attorneys that we work too much, and sometimes it's hard to balance our time. You said that you love your wife, the support that she give you, and how. What can you tell the audience? What is working for you to balance your life? It's possible. I'm pretty sure you are not perfect, but you can share some tips that you think that is helping you, that can help the audience as well.
Sure. I mean, if you ask the question, how do I do it? My wife and children would tell you not very well. But there are a few things that I try to keep within view for myself to make it easier to balance my personal life from my work life. First thing is I remind myself pretty much at the end of every day that there's always going to be more to get done. I was part of a mastermind when I first opened my practice. It was invaluable. Again, looking for that support structure, the people that I could turn to and commiserate with and confide in. So I sought that out when I started my practice. And I was in a mastermind, and the coach that facilitated it pointed out to us that there will always be more to do. You're never going to finish everything on the list of things to do, because the day you've done it all is the day you die. There will always be more to do. And I found that extremely liberating. Just the realization that that's true for all of us. None of us can actually get through it doing it all. There's always going to be something left. And so with that acceptance, it no longer became a matter of putting work aside turned into I'm not going to achieve this impossible to achieve goal of getting it all done. Now it's like, okay, there's always going to be something left to do. So this is a perfectly fine time to leave the stuff that's left to be done for later and to set it aside and focus on other things. I've recently been working on I think it's called reparenting myself. So to speak to my inner child with the way I speak to my children, because I think this is true of basically all of us, that we're all much harsher to ourselves than we would ever be to anyone else. And I've caught myself giving very good advice to colleagues and friends about how to maintain work-life balance that I completely ignore. So I've been really practicing talking to myself the way I would talk to a colleague that I care about. And so at the end of the day, when I'm feeling like I can't stop, there's so much to do, I need to get it done, to stop, to take a moment and tell myself, Joel, it's okay for you to rest. Resting is part of it. You need to recharge. You need to replenish. I've told so many of my colleagues, you're going to burn yourself out. You're not going to be able to help your clients if you are committed in an institution because you've had a nervous breakdown. You need to stay right with yourself. I've said that to people. And yet I have also been guilty of working myself ragged to the point where I have to have many people begging me to just put it away for a night. And so working on talking to ourselves with the same grace and care and kindness that we would talk to colleagues. And I think that's also extremely important. And then in addition, I'm a big fan of, I've learned that I'm a big fan of routines. I have routines that are very important for me. So I work out in the mornings, and I watch what I eat, and I have puzzles that I do in the morning, and I journal in the morning. I have all these practices and things that I do on a regular basis every day, sort of as a touchstone, someplace that I can be anchored to. And no matter what happens with my days, I come back to these practices. It gives me a sense of predictability, a little bit of control. I find that helps as well. So it's a combination of attitude shift, that you have to have the right attitude towards yourself, but also there are some tangible practices that you can do to help clear your mind. I do controlled breathing. I do some journaling in the mornings. I take stock of my day at the end of the day. I have an app that lets me rank my day in terms of how the day.
I get it. You know what? That's a huge topic.
Yeah.
You are the first one in all the interviews that I'm making, that talks about routine, because everyone has routines, bad routines and good routines. How intentionally we need to be to create the good routines, because that changes everything. You're sharing. I assuming that if you breathe and have that techniques, that's one of the routines that help you to release the stress. Is that right?
For sure.
So tell me more about that. What do you think, or how do you think is impacting your life, creating intentionally those routines? Can you give us an example of one routine, and what's the benefit of following that routine? Because everybody knows that we need to do exercise, eat well. We know that, but creating a routine is another thing.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure.
Abdul.
I mean, one I can point to that has made a big difference that I was skeptical about. I didn't think it was going to work when it was recommended to me, but it really has helped. Is I have this gratitude practice where every morning I list 3 things I'm grateful for, and I'm not allowed to repeat anything that I've said before. And so the challenge initially was do it for 30 days. And by day 1, it's my family, my friends, my home, right? And then day 2, it's my job, my parents, and my health. And as you start going all, and you get those out of the way, it becomes very hard not to repeat yourself, right? So you force yourself to find things to be grateful for. And what I found is, for myself, before I engaged in this practice, it was so easy to find all the things that were wrong, right? It was a red flag detecting machine. I could find red flags everywhere. My therapist said, Joel, you're very good at finding red flags. I want you to start looking for green flags. I want you to look for the things that are going well. And as part of that, I want you to start taking account of 3 things you're grateful for every day, no repeats for 30 days. So, okay, I got to the end of the 30 days. I was all proud of myself. Like, I did it. He says, great, keep going. And right now, I think I'm on day 192 of doing this.
Great.
Multiply that by 3, and that's the number of things I've said I'm grateful for without repeats. And it's been tremendous. It's been tremendous, because when I go to bed at night, I'm thinking, what are my 3 things going to be tomorrow morning? And it's a much better thought to have as you go to sleep versus the worry of all the things you haven't gotten done and all the things you need to do, and oh, this person yelled at me, or oh, this person hasn't paid me. I mean, those thoughts are still there, but I have positive thoughts now that I can choose to look at. So that's been tremendous in terms of outlook.
Wow, that's amazing for everyone that is listening right now. I think I love what Joel is sharing with us, because I think that it's just the art or putting positive things, and finding those good things, because sometimes we judge ourselves so hard. Like you were saying, we see all the flag and the negative things. But being in college, for me, besides that we learn some area and topics in college, I think that one of the most powerful things for everyone that went to college is that we learn and how to have discipline to go to school, to study, and manage the stress, because sometimes we need to work in the same time. We already did hard things, and that 80% of the population, they don't go through those things,
Mm-hmm.
And choosing to be an attorney is not an easy decision, and the investment in time and in money, the patience that we need to develop, So now that we accomplished that, we realize that sometimes we put some walls in front of us that says, and think, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if and it's a phrase that my wife always says, she said, if I deliver a baby, I can do whatever I want. And I was thinking, okay, yeah, I was there. So I think it was really hard, especially when she doesn't have the epidural, So, but I love the way that you are saying, gratitude is one of the most powerful things that can help us to keep being humble and realize the reality of our existence. I love it. Routines, that's great. Well, last question that I have for you, Joel, is how do you see the future with all this digital time? How are you working to use the digital tools to improve your business and to take advantage about all those things, and
Yeah.
how is that helping you to get more businesses to deliver your service better and easy, your CRM, for example, if you are using Clio or one of the other ones, because I see that there's a lot of attorneys that sometimes they like the gym, they bought the CRM, but they're not, you don't have the discipline to use it in the right way to get the benefit. How do you see you in the future, in the next 5 years, using all these digital tools?
I know I'm going to be using them a lot more. I do have a CRM, but I use it more as a case management system than a CRM.
Okay.
And I think 2025 is probably the year where I'm going to look into how to use it more as the CRM aspect of it, because we really take our clients for granted. I think in general, I think lawyers are. I used to joke that the job would be very easy, but for the clients. And now I realize the clients are the job. Like that's what we're here to do. And that's who we're here for. When I was a public defender, the cases were very interesting and the work was very interesting, but the clients had issues besides the case you were representing them on. Almost by definition, people who couldn't afford a lawyer, who met the threshold for poverty within the jurisdiction that they'd be appointed a lawyer, they generally, that kind of poverty brings with it a lot of other problems besides whatever case I represented them on. And it would be frustrating that they would be dealing with those problems and couldn't help deal with the problem I was helping them deal with. And so I would make that joke. This job would be so much easier, but for the clients. And now that I say it, I was like, oh, that doesn't feel great, because really the job is the clients. And I've come around to really recognizing that. So I think that I stand to benefit from putting a little bit more energy towards the CRM aspect of my case management software. But in terms of digital tools, I'm a big fan of all of this AI-enabled practice stuff that's coming out. I definitely use ChatGPT and Claude for a lot of things that I do. People knock it because of the horror stories you hear, but those horror stories all have one common element, which is that the attorney didn't proof what they were submitting. Ultimately, you're responsible for what you put out. And so a lot of people think, oh, you use ChatGPT and then you don't look at it. It's like, no, you have to look at it. You gotta actually work with it. But I have become so much more efficient when it comes to legal research. I have LexisNexis AI now, and so I can ask LexisNexis general questions, and it doesn't give me a perfect answer, but it gives me a much better starting point than a blank screen where I got to figure out how am I going to get started. So that's made me more efficient. ChatGPT, if I need to write a letter, it can give me like a first draft that I can work off of. And I find that I'm a much better editor than I am a writer. So if I get something that I can edit, I'm happier. I'm more comfortable doing it. There's less anxiety for me. So it creates a better experience for me. And I find that the work product is better too now because I'm using those tools. I am going to be onboarding a virtual assistant at the beginning of 2025. And the digital tools are what allow us to do that. I signed up for a phone number that they're now going to have a local phone number that they're going to be able to access from South America, from where they work. And we're going to be in touch at the regular business hours all time of the day because of the Google suite that we have and video chatting, video conferencing. yes, our practices are still very much local because of our licensing, but the work is global. Like I'm going to have at this point, I'm going to have people on both North America and South America working on my clients' cases here in Tucson, Arizona. And
You are on the
that's
border.
beyond the border.
Yeah.
And it could go even further than that.
I love it. Yeah.
So I'm a big I'm a big optimist when it comes to technology. I've heard my colleagues who are less optimistic, but I think that it's a matter of curiosity. You learn, a desire to learn. If you don't have the desire to learn, yes, this all can be very scary and very daunting. But as long as you keep an attitude that is curious and intellectually hungry, I think it only stands to help us.
Amazing. Well, you know what? We learned today. For me, I will take a couple of things that I love that Joel shared with us. So because a mentor, a friend, a colleague, guiding and amplify his vision, he was empowered to open his own business, So find the right friend, the right mentor, and ask the questions so you can find some, I will say, a better view about the things that you are able to do as an attorney. The other thing that I like that you shared with us today, Joel, is that routines are so important. We already have routines in our life, bad and good ones. Intentionally, we need to find the right routines and put it in our daily, habits, so we can see the effect and the positive effect in our life as a person and as an attorney as well. The other thing that you mentioned that I like too is that it's important always to protect and value our clients. If we believe me, as consulting for marketing and businesses, for me, this is one of the most important things to grow the business, to grow wisely, because you can grow your business being a mess, but to grow exponentially, one of the key points is, like you shared with us, Joel, is always find to give the best to your clients and the value. They will see that, they will feel that, and that's when everyone wants to do business with you. And so is there any advice that you want to share right now to finish for all those that are thinking right now, do I need to open my business? Can I do it? What would be your last advice for them?
My advice is that if you're unhappy, do something about it. That's it. It might be opening your business, it might not be, but if you're unhappy, until you do something, you're just going to keep being unhappy. Or something might happen, you might forget how unhappy you are, but it will come back. Whatever it is that made you not feel unhappy for that moment, it's going to fade and you're going to be unhappy again. And so if you want to change your circumstances, go out there and change them. Otherwise, you're just going to keep getting more of the same.
Amazing, Joel. Amazing, Joel. Thank you. Thank you for making this time for us and for the audience. Love everything that you share with us. And I really appreciate your experience and your words, to empower other attorneys. Thank you very much for being with us, Joel.
Thank you for having me, Gilberto. The pleasure was all mine. Really appreciate the chance to chat with you.
Okay, take care. I'll see you when I see you.
See you soon.
Thank you for watching and listening. If you're an attorney with your own law firm, we know you have valuable experiences to share. Reach out to us. We'd love to interview you and bring your story to life on our show to inspire other attorneys in their journey.